Man has lived by plan or accident in many places down the ages. His fondest plan has been his home. His largest accident, the town. Chances are it began on a river as a trading post. Chances are because it grew by chance. A sawmill was added, then a factory, a shop, a bank. Business was the center of the town, and homes went up on the nearest patch of empty ground. As the town grew older, the homes close in decayed, and new ones grew on the fringes. In time, they too grew old. Again and again, bright rings of homes grew outward, faded, and crumbled, just as they do in old towns today. And people, if they could afford it, kept packing up and moving, farther and farther, until someone said, "Why? Why build our town around a business, shape our lives to fit a factory? Why not build a town for people?" And that's how our new town began. Not with a trading post, or factory, or mill, but with a plan for people. And a name, Jonathan. The real difference between old towns and Jonathan is just this. Old towns grew out of business by accident. Our new town is for people, and it is planned. It began in a place where there are trees and hills and lakes, good soil and sunlight, and growing things. A place where people would like to live. And it's growing with a plan for living as well as working, for people as well as commerce. Plan for all kinds of people, with all kinds of ideas about how they want to live, with single-family homes, multiple dwellings, modular designs, stack units. Plan for business and industry, not as the only purpose of the town, but as an economic resource for the people who live here. Plan for quiet hours of strolling on forest paths, for times of laughter at sparkling lakesides, for family times. Plan for shopping and schools, for restaurants, for traffic, for all the dynamics of a thriving town, and for high-speed access to the core city. It's a new town, and it will always be new, for Jonathan is designed to meet the changing future. As tomorrow brings better ways to live, better schools and businesses, faster transportation, communication, Jonathan will change. Change in a planned, orderly way, not by fleeing an aging city center, but by flexible growth, replacing each yesterday with a better today, and preparing for every tomorrow. Yet one thing will never change here, the harmony between people and the environment. The trees and lakes, the open meadows, hills and paths and forests will remain as a part of our living town. For we know now that we must make our lives with the land as well as on it. And as we come to understand the natural world around us, we can better understand our common humanity. Tomorrow, perhaps all towns will become new towns, where people can live in harmony with nature. New towns which build bridges, not fences between people. Tomorrow, perhaps all towns will be new towns. The new town of Jonathan is now and tomorrow.
That concept in itself is a new field for home sellers, because most realtors are involved in commercial, industrial, reused or used homes, and sometimes new homes. We have a marketing group here that totally new homes. The book hasn't been written on it at all. We have an excellent marketing manager that has had 15 years experience of building new homes in Minneapolis area, and has been very successful, and he himself says this is a complete new ballgame. Here we're building new homes in a new town. So I would just like to have, I can give you a little background of what I've been involved in out here. Previous to coming to Jonathan, I was in the building material business. I have served on the local city council and the local school board. I'm fully aware of the impact of the new town on the native community here, and there are pros and cons always in something like this, but the impact is great, and we're having a little difficult time of some of the natives realizing really what we're trying to do. I think young people like yourselves can see it. At least we've got a dream and we're headed for it. Then I went in, came out to Jonathan and worked with the Jonathan Housing Corporation, which was more or less an innovative research type of housing market that was owned by 5 major corporations, and I did some project managing on some of the construction. And as of the last 10, 11 months, I decided to try to market again. And what I enjoy most about that is I basically can talk to people and tell them how things are constructed, because I'm interested enough to feel that out. So once a house is finished, really people don't know what's behind all these finished walls. So I think I can gain confidence that way. Now, if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to lead on from there.
So, work on this one. How different is selling a home in Dunn selling a home in Chaska or down?
You see, I never had that experience. I've had a lot of experience in Old Chaska. There was very little real estate involvement, that is, the second man, the in-between party. When I was in the building material business, I used to naturally be interested in selling material. How do you sell material? Well, you got to find somebody who wants to build a new house. That's the volume stuff. So I worked with local contractors, and as an incentive to have them continue loyalty with me, I would either get them customers or I would take their customers and I would try to help them plan their house. And then I would have somebody draw it up. Nothing architecturally way out or anything like that, because most people like a dwelling. And there are plenty of plan books out where they can pick various things from others, and we basically had a draftsman that would just kind of standardize it, make it look kind of appear nice in the front, and then we'd estimate the material and give them the contractor a price on the material, and then he'd give them a price on all the other subcontract work, and if it was feasible, we sold some material. Now, that's my experience in sales that way. As far as new home sales in Jonathan are concerned, you people have been in the area a couple of days, haven't you? When did you come to Minneapolis?
Well, our college is right in Minneapolis.
Oh, I see. What college are you in?
Augsburg College. Right
Oh, Augsburg. I thought.
Cedar Riverside area.
I see. Yeah, sure. Well, you all know that probably the majority of our buyers out here work someplace near the metropolitan area. So those people would be somewhat sacrificing distance for a lifestyle. That's really the main thing that we've got going for us. There are houses of comparable prices closer to work. They might be encumbered with busy streets and a few things like that. But out here, we've had one of the things that we got going for us now, we have about 1,500 people living here now. One of the things that we got going for us now, the people that are living here can testify, and their testimonies are very valuable to us. Like a person that works down in the loop. It's very frustrating to go to your college at peak traffic hour. 3 cars abreast and all this stuff. The longest part of their drive home and to work is the nicest. Is the nicest. They've got open fields, open ground. There's a lot of open space between Jonathan and their work point. So I think a lot of the men and women have an opportunity to kind of put their wits together on their way into work. And when they've finished a tiring day, after they get out of the bulk traffic area, they can kind of relax and prepare coming home in a little easier manner than they would if they got out of the traffic and they were home. Our walkways, greenways, recreational facilities, our open space, our dedication to 20 to 25% of all developed lands to remain in natural state or recreational areas is having an impact on lifestyle. And even the people that have families, the breadwinner, I think, is sacrificing some of his travel time so that his family is in a little safer condition and in a little bit more enjoyable position. That's the way I read it, and it's been very good.
I want to know, do most of the workers, do they work in campuses like Augsburg?
I would say not too much St. Paul. I would say of the working force probably, and we are studying this now to give you more exact answers, so this is a guesstimate. I'd say it could be anywhere from 60 to 75% working in towards that area.
Are there any businesses or anything like that here?
Yes, this complex here alone has probably got 60 employees, and probably 2/3 of them live nearby. But there are still some of those that are still living in the city coming out here. They haven't broken that change yet. They haven't wanted to change for their family yet. And this will come. The industrial park employs somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 to 800 people. Now, the clerical work, the laboring force, and that group are probably large percentage from here, from this area, Shasta, even the surrounding towns west and south of here. The executives are gradually coming in to live here. This is what we hope to plan, is that the executives of plants or firms that will locate here because they want to live nearby.
Most of the people who live here have lived here for less than how's that? Most of them live over a year.
A year ago today, we had something like, I believe, 800 people here. And now it's 1,500. It's kind of a doubling situation right now. We kind of anticipate there's probably 3,000 here next year this time.
How much deliberate learning are you trying to do from the club? I know there are some, there's been quite a bit of.
Oh yeah, you see, one of the things that one new community does for after another is research. Undoubtedly, Columbia and Reston have made some mistakes and they've made some successes. And of course, you're as interested in the successes as they are the failures. We have probably made some mistakes out here. I think every new town looks at another. And it's a continuing, like my marketing manager is taking me the 1st and 2nd of this month to drop in at Reston and Columbia. And then we get an insight not only from, all facets. You see, our business people have been there, our legal people have been there, our marketing group, others have been there. There's all facets that we have to look at. And I'm going to enjoy it because I've never been there myself. And I think you folks have.
What's all the average for the median income people living there?
We've got statistics growing on that, and I would say probably the average 12,000. We're in the process of updating that. And see, we have an awful lot of young people that are students living in apartments out here. Well, their income's nil. Single and married.
In South Columbia, they had started off with a lot of townhouses and that, which had originally sold for about $15,000. I see we have the same thing here. Now in Columbia, real estate values appreciated to such a great extent, would probably increase. Well, values almost doubled up here. And what has happened is that people who make less than $12,000 a year cannot afford to live there. And I'm wondering if there is any evidence at this time that real estate values are beginning to appreciate here in Jonathan.
Well, unquestionably they are, and I would say right at the present time an average of 6% a year. That's in our favor, of course. I think, I don't know, it seems to me like here we're going to have some condominiums and townhouses. We're going to probably go on into it a little larger scale, and we're going into it with the idea that the young person that has job potential has good earnings, no savings. So you could start out in something you could handle. And with the security feeling that when you get established and you have a little savings, or you're making more money, or your family has increased, you might want to go into a larger townhouse or to a single family dwelling. We will take back the unit you live in as long as you buy something else in Jonathan and give you all the equities you've earned in your present dwellings towards the purchase of another unit. So rather than, we are hopefully growing with their financial growth and their family needs. Now, I don't know whether that exactly answers your question. That's a good point that you brought out. If these things do appreciate, naturally, the tax assessor is going to look at it from the standpoint, look, the guy bought a $50,000 townhouse, and we have it market valued on the tax rolls at $15,000. 3 years later, he sold it for $22,000. We've got to increase that market value on the tax rolls too, because here it's showing growth. So that burdens people too. Of course, the governor just recently wants to freeze real estate taxes for 2 years. I don't know whether it's going to be successful out of it. Stop the inflationary type of thing.
The thing I'm worried about, I think this will happen in Columbia, you may have to hear that you said about 60 to 75% of people work in the metropolitan area. In Columbia is situated between Washington and Baltimore, and they draw a lot of the top people, a lot of the executives from both places. The average income is about $16,000. And I could really see, here, Jonathan, a nice place to live. You've got Hazelton Golf Course right here, you've got another golf course, you have, kind of a big country club out here. And if real estate values really started to appreciate like we did in Columbia, I would imagine this would
I think this is gonna happen out here a little differently. I think you're gonna have spotty areas. I think you're gonna have areas where the wooded lots that naturally cost more, and the bigger lots are going to be used for people that can afford larger houses. And those are the ones that are going to get, they're going to be able to afford it. They're going to get the tax evaluation more so than we're going to have all ranges of housing. We have to. And we're going to have people living out here from all income levels. And it's going to have to work.
Yeah, that's the point. What happened in Columbia is they do have some subsidized those too, but they ended up with a vacuum. Those people with about 8,000, 12, 14,000. Because they're, make too much to subsidize real estate values.
Well, we have
They
some.
didn't have subsidy at first. Did they have AAA? Yeah, but it was not a new, it wasn't built up as a new community. So you didn't have as
Control.
strong community input in subsidization.
We have some low-income housing out here, and we'll probably be doing some more, but it'll be a little bit more controlled on where it happens and making sure that the appearance is not offending to those living there. You have to be very careful of this. One of the things that I think is exceptionally successful is the Farm Hill townhouses, which are just to the west of us here, where they were on the 236 program, a rental type of subsidy, and there are 4 or 5 units in there that were models, and they're rented or leased out on a non-compensating type thing, so that anyone in any state of life that could not be qualified for low rental could rent one of those, and they rent for about a third more than the others. And those people, even there's some, I have sold a unit to one party that lived over there. He was paying something like $285 a month for a 2-bedroom unit that was a former model, so it's a regular standard priced area. And they got along beautifully with everybody else in there. But what I was trying to drive at is an awful lot of those people over there. There might be some gals with families that no longer have a breadwinner, and there's not a whole lot of that. There's some. But there are more young people that one of the couple, either the man or the wife, is the breadwinner, and the other one's going to school. And it gives them an opportunity to have a fairly stable standard of living with help now that they're going to grow out of. They won't qualify after one of the other becomes educated and can get into the job market and into the proper earning area. But it's, I think socially it's just going to be great. And I think it's working out here. I don't think that we're concerned about the ADC people and that kind of thing. Even in that area where that is happening over there, that's giving that mother an opportunity to get on her feet, stabilize, and then go on. And it's happening. It's going to happen.
Are income levels very elevated, or are there going to be areas for the rich, areas for the...
Well, the plan to date has been to kind of mix. Now, there's only, out here, we do have one area where there are unusual lots. And a guy that's making $12,000, $16,000 couldn't afford to even buy the lot in there. And that type of thing might happen. But I know, for instance, and we're going to get away from numbered neighborhoods. We're going to start calling them neighborhoods by their entrance street or something like that. We're looking at it that way. I don't think people like to be numbered. This might be called Lake Village instead of Village 1. Neighborhood 2, which has got Kings Road running through it, might be called Kings Neighborhood. And we're working on a signing system right now that might be a little bit more palatable for everyone. Neighborhood 6, as it's called, it has a street called Von Hertzen Circle. Von Hertzen is the father of Tapiola, right? That might be called Von Hertzen neighborhood. Well, they have, in that neighborhood, there are a few wooded lots tucked in one corner that qualify for a better, higher level priced house. And they're going to fit in there from houses ranging from $32,000 to $80,000. And there's not going to be anything wrong. It's going to work. Any other questions?
Are you committed to a certain percentage of subsidized housing with the project agreement with HUD?
I'm not that familiar with it. I think that there probably is something along that line. I don't know whether it has to be a continuing program. I think maybe you have to do it, study it, and give them reports. Now, whether it has to be continuing, I don't know. It's out of my field. However, we have people here that could answer that question. The fact of the matter is, we were the first Title IV town, and the legislation and laws and all this stuff probably developed with a lot of research from right here. I think Jonathan probably did a lot of the legal work for HUD.
You mentioned something before about problems that you come across on residents and some advances that you made developing now.
Well, you see, and I'm not even familiar with those problems. I know that our people have researched them. I'm sure that Reston almost fell on his face for a start. Gulf took it over, so they must have had some financial problems. But what they are, I don't know.
Since you've been in the building area before coming to this, what are you going to say about the quality of construction, housing construction? It's on the road so far.
I think this type of architectural design is so unique, so unusual to the ordinary home looker that at first they're skeptical of it because some of it looks boxy, and it immediately puts a mental block up in their head that maybe this is not good construction, and it's not true. It is very good construction. The exterior materials are long life type of things. I think it helps. I'm a very practical person. When I build a house for myself, I'm one that looks at it from the standpoint of low maintenance. How many times am I going to have to get out and paint it? And I have lived in colonial houses where I had to paint every 5 years and this kind of stuff. And this type of rough textures material that we have been predominantly using, and we will be varying from that. If you stained it, then you get color. If you left it natural, you wouldn't have to do a thing to it. So once it's stained, you might that stain might hold up color-wise long enough, as much as 10 years before you might want to liven it up again or leave it. I kind of like that. Construction-wise, it's as good as anything you'll see. Prefabricated. I was involved in modular housing on a research level with Jonathan Housing. The only thing I can say about it is no one has been successful in it. Stanford Research, on paper, did the bulk work on it. It was a flexible type house, which we grow with. And they were one of our partners. You use more material. You don't have the controls that you need. And nobody can afford to do it the way it's supposed to be done, yet. And the only way modular housing is going to work is if you can bring out as near to complete, if not completed, unit in cubes or boxes that will fit precisely together on a foundation and stick together without political and union problems. Now, we're talking about plumbing, wiring, a lot of things. The impact of that It will take years, but it'll happen. I think we're right about at the time. I think, or your time, but Model T came out, what, about 1910? Cost about, first one cost about $3,000. In 1920, it was $800. It was a mass production. This is what we're going to have to strive for, but there's an awful lot of big corporations that have invested a lot of money in it that have lost their families so far. And there's a lot of answers coming up there. And the other thing, as far as componentizing is concerned, there are some component walls being built. And of course, previous to that, there was truss rafters, which I think you're all aware of, and that, as far as componentizing is concerned, is the most successful.
What was that?
Truss rafters. You can set up walls, slap on your rafters without any bearing walls under them, and you can close a building up quickly to protect it from any elements, so you have continued continuity of the building. The panelized walls are great, but anything, and it's not as serious there, that's the closest to modularization of components that I think that will be successful for a few years, is bringing out sidewalls that can lay flat on a truck and not take up airspace like a cube would. When you deliver too far away from a manufacturing plant, a unit that's going to sit on a box, you're shipping an awful lot of air through a congested traffic normally that has to be precisely delivered over the road at exact hours, depending on weather conditions and all this kind of things. There's a lot of things involved. Component walls, decks and stuff like that can be laid flat on a trailer and brought out and erected fairly fast. So if you've got money out on interest, the fastest way to keep that interest down is to put up buildings, cover them, finish them as quickly as possible, and sell them. If you can do that in 30 to 45 days, you can probably make some money. Stick building is still the most successful. Better controls, but takes a little longer to do. Most of our construction out here at present is stick building. Yes.
She mentioned housing for handicapped.
We're doing a study. You're quite aware of this. In fact, 2 or 3 weeks ago, if you're from the Minneapolis area, there was a terrific social impact, I thought, in a paper about the aged in Minneapolis that live alone, look at 4 walls, have to practically crawl stairs to get to their rooms. And a lot of them don't need to be subsidized. A lot of them have got some estate. Along with the handicap thing, I think that they both go hand in hand. I think that, and we're doing some research on it. Feasibility studies. Will it work out here? Will we be able to, will people come out here in that state of life and live here if we have something convenient for them? Near shopping centers, near medical research centers, near clinics and drugstores, and on one level that anybody, no matter whether it's handicapped or aged, can comfortably get into dwelling.
So there aren't the barriers like all kinds of curves.
Right. And I'm looking forward to this. This is, I just hope feasibly that if we, well, we won't do it unless it will be feasible. I hope the feasibility studies show that we can get people like that out here. Because, you know, the aging, especially, or even the handicapped, and of course in Minnesota you don't have too long a period of good weather, but I can just imagine what enjoyment some of those people would get to be able to go along the walkways and go through the actual resources that we have here, and even visit the recreational sites and see somebody else actively participate. It'd be fun. We're all going to get old someday. Yes.
My family came out here about something like that, and we're talking about architectural standards and stuff like that, where somebody wanted to make the house white or something, and they didn't want it. What kind of strengths and stuff like that? Do you have?
Well, we do have a design criteria. I don't really think anybody can legally stop one from painting their house white. However, it's in the design criteria that you should, if you want to change your house color, you should bring it up and let the design group review it, see what kind of an impact it would have on your neighbors and that neighborhood. Now, again, we're doing research in that area. And naturally, this, like for instance, it probably turns your parents off.
No.
That affects me, see, marketing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to lose the sight of what we're trying to do out here. But I want to have marketing to have as much impact on what we do out here as design does. I don't want the pendulum to go one way or the other. I want it to be, if somebody comes out here and wants a true colonial house, that there will be an area for a true colonial house. I don't mean something with gingerbread on it and shutters that don't work and are too narrow for the windows or something like that. But I mean, if somebody architecturally wants a particular style or a traditional house, it could happen. And I think it's going to happen. But it's not going to, we're not going to lose sight of the true vision of new town building. I think design enters into it. Right now we're in the process, you may or may not know, the original planner of Jonathan, Ben Cunningham, elected to, last summer sometime, elected to form a design group separate from Jonathan. And the idea of that all evolved from all new communities, and especially those that are coming up now, are continually dropping in on old communities, old new communities, and trying to pick their brains, like we did. So a lot of times they come in and they don't get the proper amount of time, or they get misinformation and this kind of stuff. So they formed a new community service group. In other words, they would be consultants for new towns. And if somebody wanted some legal information, they'd have that. If somebody wanted some administrative information, they'd have that, design, planning, and everything. Graphics, all this. And it worked out really well. Now, Henry McKnight was one of the ones that was very much impressed with this and backed it and was a part of it. And he passed away. He probably was the best national salesman any group like that could have. Now, they were a new group, they had a few customers, but without his impact, their board of directors decided to start winding down and dissolve. So they are in that position right now. We at Jonathan Development were using them as consultants. Whatever time we used of theirs, we paid them for it. Now, I think this group is probably individually trying to work something out together. We don't know what they might do, but I think there'll still be that type of thing around. In the meantime, if it doesn't, we will be getting an educated planning group to continue to work with us. We won't need as large a staff as they geared up to, because they were taking to a national line, or hopefully good. They've got several jobs that they're still working on. But I would say in 60 to 90 days, they no longer will be located here unless individually they can come up with some way to capitalize themselves to continue.
Are there other new town developments beginning here in the metropolitan area?
I don't think anything other than Cedar Riverside, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Most of them are east and west coasts and south. I know there was a fellow in from New York that had 22 acres that they were starting to develop, organize. And organizing these things is not overnight. Actually, Jonathan started The dream started probably in 65, 66. And the dream has to be kept quiet until you economically, as possible, acquire enough land to do what you want to do. Then you start growing. We consider ourselves in the third year of development. But the dream started about 7 years ago. 6 or 7 years ago.
I don't know how this works, but the county of Chaska control the land? I mean, okay, this is in county of Chaska?
City.
City of Chaska. Okay, so they control like the zoning for Jonathan and for the surrounding countryside?
Right. The idea, one of the reasons why Henry decided to locate here, other than the beautiful terrain and the resources, natural resources that were here, it was located near a community that already had city sewer and water and their own disposal plant. They already had power. They already had political government. And so by locating nearby, then they had, in that early stage, there was the process of trying to get annexed to the city of Chaska. There again is when we get some native ramifications because we're big enough, we don't want to change, this kind of thing. But we're over that hump, and we are under the jurisdiction of the city of Chaska. They are our political influence. As we grow, we can make some changes that will be all-encompassing. We're hopefully looking at it from the standpoint, and it's getting there, that both the old and the new will be open-minded. And we've come a long ways along that area.
But if they, say 1990, that's really will it be a time for separation, the creation of a separate city?
I don't think so. I think that it'll be one city. The 7-county metropolitan area does not like to have more communities. In fact, they'd like to have more merging, using facilities. One police force, one fire department, one government, one sewer system, this kind of thing. The wards will be divided up to be proportionate so that all are, we have 4 wards in Chaska, Jonathan. And you have to have reapportionment every so many years so that the boundary lines, the ward lines would have to change. Now, as Jonathan spreads out, maybe there will be the point that the old citizens will feel that they're really getting pretty in the stick because they don't have the votes. But there are enough young people coming out here and enough dynamic people that are really open-minded. They're not going to let the developer control. They're going to control. And I think this is the way it should be. Yes.
City council student.
One of the basic problems in this country right now is the auto. And since Jonathan is building on a business in cities, it sounds like a good percentage of the population who spends probably an hour a day talking to us. Has that been a consideration?
Well, there's been some dreams that I can tell you about. I know that there was a dream that there might be a neighborhood here where an automobile is not allowed in.
Didn't happen.
Yeah. And I think this is in the future planning. When you came out here, you probably came from the north on the 41, and you right by Hazeltine. Just before you get there, there's a railroad bridge that you crossed. That's the Milwaukee line going into Minneapolis. It's the straightest railroad line going into Minneapolis. And a year 6, 7 from now, there'll probably be a major shopping center spanning that railroad track, because the railroad track goes through a hillside. So we use air rides. And this will be a totally in-house living type of complex. You can shop, live, eat, go to shows, stuff like that at that point. It would be a major shopping area that would service like maybe Southdale does now. It would be to draw on 150,000 people in the surrounding area. Hopefully, there will be rapid transit into Minneapolis by rail with 3 stops from here to Minneapolis. It'd be Chanhassen, Eden Prairie, downtown Minneapolis. Wouldn't that be great? Large parking lot, drive to the center, get on rapid transit, 20 minutes you're downtown. You can read, do whatever you want while you're traveling. I hope this happens, and I think it will. But again, you're involving a railroad.
What time period?
But 6 to 8 years. Now, these are things I hear and have heard from planners. It looks good. I hope that there'll be no problem with the railroad to work something like that.
There's a kind of second part of the question. Tapiola, because of the density, doesn't have cars in the city. So now here you have to drive to get to the shopping center, or get to the rapid transit facilities. Why didn't you go into high-rise? You're supposed to have higher densities.
We will be going into it. But there'll be a high-rise in that shopping center, for instance. There'll be a high-rise over by Hazelton. There'll be a health center over there. There'll be another golf course. All these things have to be done in a procedure type order. I'm sure that a lot of people, see the walkway system is designed to do things like that. But I don't particularly like to walk in 20 below zero weather mile, kind of a soft yes, but in the summertime it'd be great, wouldn't it? Leave your car in the garage.
If you hadn't wanted to have as low a density, which is about, I think Cedar Riverside is figured out about 15 times high density, with Jonathan, all land included. If you hadn't wanted to have as low a density, would it have been possible to talk Chaska and zoning for higher density?
Oh, well, we don't have any problem with that. Their planning commission and their council realizes that there are some areas where we will do higher densities, but they also realize when we do that, we can free up more land for natural resources. And that's the key to it. Like, for instance, the neighborhood that I was involved in, which was owned by Jonathan Housing Corporation, they took bare ground, 16 acres, and density control over that 16 acres was 4 lots per acre, or 4 units, living units per acre. And it's all been designed out to completed neighborhood now, and they elected, instead of 64, to use 55 units. And 24 of those were townhouses, which take up less space than single families, and 31 were single families. So they ended up with 3 fairly good size parks or common areas that will be totally and exclusively for those 55 units living in that neighborhood. And these kind of things, the planning and councils look at as being innovative and in the right direction. So and then that totally involves a certain region or area. So actually, while we left off 9 units over there, if someplace in that region that was designed for multiple dwellings at a certain density, we could probably take some of that density of 9 and put over here and increase this because it's high rise or something like that. So it'll work.
I suppose the development of Jonathan had a considerable impact on the character of government in Chaska. Is our city planning commission, for example, expanding its activity?
Oh, yes.
staff?
They got a new fire department, and they're a volunteer. That's someday will have to be permanent. There's no question about it. They'll probably have to have another station up here, and it'll probably be a permanent fire department, which will create jobs. They have more equipment. Their city street maintenance has to have more equipment. They put on more clerical help in their offices because they've got more light bills and that sort of thing coming in. Police force add one more car. But it's all controlled in one central area. Not two police forces, but one police force with now two cars. That's unusual for Minneapolis. You'd have plenty of cars. So
the planning commission staff, you know, how they.
that's all voluntary. It hasn't grown.
Okay.
See, most of the planning and the legwork and that thing is done here. That involves a lot of their research. So we bring down research, let them evaluate it, educate them in it. They study it, yes or no, and then the final decision is done by the city council. And the city council, again, is in small communities are just dedicated people that are going to give away a hell of a lot of free time. Same way the planning commission. I mean, those city councilmen are meeting 4 nights a week, probably taking 8 other nights a week doing their homework. And for nothing. I think they get $500 a year to cover fire expenses.
In Columbia, they had what they call pre-servicing. They built a lot of amenities in the community, like they were dedicated 20% open space. They built neighborhood swimming pools, a big indoor swimming pool, a nice marina, they built a cultural center, teenage centers, all this planned and built, and then they went back to the people and assessed at the rate of 75 cents per $100 a tax that went to what was called the Columbia Association. And this association runs all of these amenities. And that moves the country up to transparency. And I'm wondering what amenities we will have here, Jonathan, now. And how will these be financed, especially in the light, I would imagine that the developer will probably have left, Jonathan, someday, probably phase himself out. How are these things going to be taken care of?
We have the same type of association, and of course, I think Ruston probably grew faster than we did, so that the developer could assess more people in the earlier stage and not be paying the load at the front end like we would here for some of those things. Like the man-made lake over here, the dam alone cost $80,000, just the dam. That's all in the association. The walkways, the pavilion, the art center, the theater barn, the daycare center, tennis courts, ball diamonds. This is all in the association, but you know, in the early stages, it's done more to create traffic out here as kind of an advertising campaign for the developer. I would look at it that way. But as more people come in, and you can read their desires, and I think they have to be involved in it. If you want an indoor swimming pool, are you going to be willing to continue to be assessed a little bit more maybe than now? Right now, the assessment for all the amenities that you're talking about that we have here, as big as they are, is $52.50 per year for every resident, every homeowner. Okay, that never can be increased more than 5% a year. That's a security valve. For every lot that's platted, Jonathan is putting in their share as lot owners. So they're really subsidizing this until it gets on on its own. But by so doing, they still have full design control and where we're going in that direction, which I think they should have. And I think residents, most of them, feel that that's true. Now, once the residences get in the area of 2/3 majority, then they're going to control it, and the developers start to ease out like you're talking, maybe year 16, 17. The developer is not going to have the controls over these amenities that they originally had. So you're going to have to educate and well develop the association that everybody is a voting member of. Everybody that lives here has ownership in all those amenities. Right now it's meager, but as their numbers grow, it's going to be great. That's basically what they're doing at Columbia. Then when you get into townhouse complexes, you got another association. They got common areas around their townhouse, and they have various maintenance charges that they're all non-profitable. Yes.
I was going to ask about education facilities. What would be your taxes?
We're in, as far as the school districts are concerned, public school district, we're in 112, and it covers quite a large area. We have East Union, Carver, Chaska, Chanhassen, Victoria. That's that entire area around Jonathan. We are part of that school district. We get into a problem area there, early stages of planning. I had been on the school board, as I mentioned. Jonathan put up a sign down here in their planning. They said, ideal spot for a school site. Why? Because residences eventually will be built around that area. There will be enough kids living around that site that they can walk to school without being bused. Economic savings. Also, if that's designated prior to building there for a school site, you're never going to build something there that you're going to want to tear down later. So in other words, developers saving a spot for a school. They didn't say a school was going to be built there, ideal spot for a school. The school district has to say a school will be built there. They misinterpreted it. Jonathan's telling us where we're going to build schools. You know, they're working for nothing, the school board, so they start getting irritated. You know? So you got to use an awful lot of oil politically, no matter what you do in life. Leave the sandbox at home. Use the oil can. Because all they're going to do is actually, when the time comes, their kids here, Jonathan will sell them that land at their cost. They can design it, build what they want to there. And it's going to be an ideal location, really. Now, they're not forced to build it. Economically, they're going to be smart if they do build it. And we as taxpayers are interested. Does that answer your question? There's also
you don't have any new schools here.
no schools in the new town yet.
How about daycare centers or nursery schools?
We have a Montessori school located in a building that Jonathan donated to the cause. We have a daycare center that's in the basement of a barn that has been remodeled. There's a waiting list for the daycare center already, and it's just really getting underway. Right? So this gives us a study and insight on the need of that. So we're going to have more daycare centers.
Okay, and are you going to have high school, junior high school, and elementary schools?
I think that it's difficult. In this district, we planned on a campus-type school system where you'd have all three. And right now we have an elementary school and a senior high on something like 90 acres of land, which we bought at the right time. And then we have enough room for a new junior high, which has been voted down by the taxpayers for bonding for it. We will have to have it. The longer we wait, the more it's going to cost. And as the community grows, there probably will have to be maybe a junior high in Chanhassen, maybe another junior high in Jonathan, and then maybe another senior high someplace in between. but where these will land, it'll be population will decide it. There's also, you know, that you have the Arboretum and you have the Minnesota State Tree Farm up north of us. In their planning, they have set aside some lands that they think we'll have post-high school educational facilities, or a junior college or a vocational college or a university level type of thing. And I think that'll happen. I'm very impressed with the vocational school in Prairie. Have you ever been over there? Oh, you should visit that. You've never seen anything dynamic like that. Hello.
Yeah, I was wondering, it seems like if it wasn't for the city of Minneapolis, so close to Jonathan wouldn't be as exciting or vital a place to live, I suppose. What's the responsibilities of Jonathan to the city of Minneapolis?
Well, being a native, or almost a native down here, I don't think we have anything that we owe the city of Minneapolis, but that's not true. Culturally, you've got everything. Arts, theater, so forth. But your Metropolitan Planning Commission has laid the groundwork for that. As of January 1st, everybody that builds out here in Jonathan has to give the Metropolitan Sewer Board $225 to help subsidize their sewer system, which are servicing us. So it's not really subsidizing us. We're becoming involved in total big planning type of things. So it costs us money. Carver County pays in a proportionate share of the cost of the Metropolitan Planning Commission, your sewer board. And that's not only Jonathan, it's all the communities around, but the ones that are progressing and developing are naturally at the head on going to be paying the biggest share of the load because they're using those facilities. Now, Chaska Jonathan did not have to become a part of the Metropolitan Sewer Board for probably 7 years because we had our own sewer plant that would adequately take care of us for that many years. The county board and the council elected to go ahead and join that group and let them include our system in their planning. So the Metropolitan Sewer Board actually owns the disposal plant down in Chaska, and they have their own personnel running it, but we're paying for it. So I don't know whether that answered your question. I think our success, like Columbia and Reston, will be that we're near a large metropolitan center. No question about it. So we own that. Go ahead.
The problem with Columbia and with the suburban developments here in Rome and Jonathan is that it pulls the wealth out of the city and doesn't put back. What do you think you should do? Do you think you should do anything about that? And what do you think? So I guess that's kind of
give me that again. I didn't quite understand.
Okay, you're pulling people that are going to be living out here are going to be fairly wealthy. They're going to be at least middle class, probably a lot of upper middle class, because they're wealthy, just like in.
We don't intend for it to be that way, but it might. The trend might be that direction.
Yeah, and okay, so as in suburban developments, it's pulling, and this is kind of a suburb. It's pulling those kind of people out of the city. It's pulling dollars. They're going into using city services. Not really painful. You're using the freeway as kind of Minneapolis.
Well, I can't answer it directly and as concisely as you probably want, but I think that would be a pretty deep question. And I think that we could justify as much from this standpoint, or this end, as you could the other end. But I don't know how to do it. I'll have to say that. You can look at it from the standpoint of the guy that lives up near Grand Forks, but on the Minnesota side of the river, is helping pay for some of the freeways going into Minneapolis with his license tax and his road tax and his gas tax, and he might not ever use it. See, these are the things, someday we might be in the same position as Minneapolis. When you have those amenities, you're going to have to share them. Now you need people to come into Minneapolis on those freeways that are cutting up the city to get them down to your shopping areas in order to support those businesses which you are.
More feet of road per person outstate Minnesota than Minneapolis.
That would be a good question to follow up on. I bet you probably is.
Minneapolis is
This is a point too. This is a point too.
I suppose the question can turn into how do we develop a kind of what we call consciousness?
I think this is what the Metropolitan Planning Commission is doing. See, it's involving the total 7 counties that are benefiting from some of that central core stuff. And they're making them participate in it. Even the airport thing. This is going to involve everybody, not only the people around the airport or the metropolitan area that have businesses that are using it probably more than the other guys, but it's available to all, and all should probably share. And I think this is what the direction they're heading. The fact of the matter is, as far as a Metropolitan Planning Commission is, this would be another good research for you. I think nationally, Twin Cities is being looked at as being very successful in that area, more so than any other community in the United States. The leader.
There was some talk about, there's been some talk about Jonathan's relationship with Cedar Riverside and Down Development. Is there somebody going to be talking to us about that during the day? Or
No, there isn't.
I can't help you in that area other than I know that Henry McKnight was totally and heavily involved in it, and he had another vision there that's on its way and will carry out. If you could get Jules or someone like that to talk to, that'd be great, but I know that he's so bad about this.
I know that other groups have come in and they haven't been able to help them. You know,
Of course, there's somebody from Cedar Riverside very close to you, too, they can talk to you.
I was gonna say, have you been to Cedar Riverside?
Oh, yes, we
I understand this
worked there.
Gloria Siegel is one who's really in it there, but we have very little contact.
I don't think Jonathan directly was involved too much as a developer, other than their planning people helped them do some of the planning. And their legal people probably did some guiding.
This railroad spur, Milwaukee, it's a spur.
It's a main line.
Oh, it's a main line.
It's a main line. There might be a little problem there. We might have to make another adjacent line or something. But they don't use it
There was
much.
some talk of that thing, getting right into the subway system.
Yeah, that would take you, go right down to the railroad station right off the loop. It's in walking distance of anything downtown, or bus connections. Yeah.
Since Mr. McKnight's death, has there been any ways for people's change goals and planning with Jonathan?
No, the nice part about Mr. McKnight's situation is that it's fortunate that he didn't die 18 months ago or something like that. The pattern, the trend, and the organization is well in force. There are people that are a little concerned that we might lose sight of true town planning. And everything that I get is no, we're not. We're going to go right on and we're going to fulfill his dream. And I'm not really concerned that we're going to rampage the land and make it a complete business type venture. It's got to be a business. It's got to be profitable, or we're going to fall on our face. But it's going to be, the concept is going to be continued, and I get this from we do have a new president who took his place, and he was the former executive vice president. So, and he has been on hand and been trained and understands the situation from former Henry Knight, and our legal consultant has been involved in this from day one. The only change typically that's been made was really made before Henry died, and that was that the in-house planning had separated prior to his death and formed a new corporation that would take care of all communities. In other words, it looked like they had done most of their job here already, and we could use them part-time to continue on, and they could devote their other times without disrupting their organization to other new communities. And since his death, being what they considered the national salesman for that group, their board of directors decided to dissolve. And now they're in the process of trying to form something else.
I hate to break this up, but we have an 11:15 appointment at CIS. Since I've got an 11:15, and you better wonder I'm back down the hall.
Well, I hope that I was helpful. I'm kind of an amateur in a lot of the areas that you're covering, and it's, we're very grateful that people that are studying and researching like you are come out here, and we'll always try to help you.
I do have our senior engineer.
Yes.
Senior engineer coming in this afternoon, so he can get in a little more technical lines on that too.
Bill has got, he's in charge of land developing on an engineering scale. Formerly was with Tim Tom, formerly was with the city of Bloomington, so he has in-house ability to know what's involved in construction and know what to be aware of and know how to lay it out economically. So you'll get some good information.
Thank you.
Thanks.